It's prime automotive entertainment. Welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 Grand Tour moments. Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're looking at 10 of the finest moments that the Grand Tour has given us to date. Following Jeremy Clarkson's infamous parting of ways with the BBC, Chump and Sons had a lot to live up to, and just as much to prove when they saddled up those Mustangs and ventured forth into the private sector. Number 10, the excellent Books to the Future. Here's a Clarkson, Hammond and May classic, if ever there was one.
After just 40 minutes with no help from anyone else, I ended up with this.
Unsurprisingly, Jeremy has an opinion about SUVs, that being, they aren't any good. Thus, he sets about making one of his own. Tapping into the spirit of the Hammerhead Eagle Eye thrust, Clarkson strips a Land Rover Discovery down to the chassis and drivetrain, which, for various legal reasons, he mates to a 78 MG.
Right. At this point, I decided, for no particular reason, to scrap the MG idea and go for something else instead.
However, when it develops a severe dog trot in its shakedown cruise, Clarkson marries the Disco to an old Merc. It's a melding that leaves Richard, James, and Chelsea FC thoroughly unimpressed.
To create a vision of pure... what's the word?
Rubbish.
Number 9, airport mobility, legends and luggage. It's no secret that our favourite globe-trotting gits spend a fair bit of time travelling. Trouble is, not all of this travel is quick enough for our Jezza.
No! Oh, sorry, Jeremy, you killed a man!
After spending an estimated 20 minutes of the film complaining, he and Richard finally introduced the point: airport-friendly personal transit devices. Clarkson crafts a drag-along suitcase into something of an open-topped Peel P50, which he reckons can hit 28 miles per hour if he forgoes the concept of steering, while Hammond gets a bit Elon Musky and comes up with a motorized laptop-cum-skateboard.
This is more like a racetrack than a shop. Oh, shit! Oh, shit!
Mix in a confined space, the general public, and plenty of things best not crashed into, and you arrive at some of the best juvenile stupidity the team has ever come up with.
Ah! Sorry.
Number 8, James's Fiat Breakdown, Columbia Special Part 1.
James, have you broken down?
Yes.
James May is a complex man. Holder of a music degree from Pendle College, Lancaster University, Bim is easily the most practical and handy of the trio, and has a particular way of making the dull and mundane somehow entertaining, while retaining a unique cool. Still, when his Fiat Panda 4x4 Sizzler breaks down, it takes May down with it. Sent that extra inch further when Jeremy bumps his Jeep into the Panda, James finally cracks and soon finds a kindred spirit in the Jeep's windscreen.
Go on. Go.
Clarkson responds in kind, but he ultimately gets his comeuppance when Hammond nearly drives over the top of him while backing up blind in his jacked up Chevy.
Whoa! Hammond! You moron!
Number 7, Stalin's house, sea to unsalty sea.
Yeah, we can have a look. Trouble is, when you tend to go into a building owned by Stalin, you rarely come out again.
3 supercars, an Aston, a Bentley, and a BMW. 1 road trip along the Black Sea to the Caspian Sea, from Georgia to Azerbaijan. Yada yada yada, cars, exposition, driving. Arriving at the Georgian town of Gori, the birthplace of one Joseph Stalin, the show's resident history buffs, Clarkson and May, decide to do a little World War II sightseeing with Hammond in tow.
And said, one day when I grow up, I want to be the nastiest piece of work the world has ever seen. And the parents would have said, there's a little boy in Austria, and he wants to be the nastiest piece of work. But we think, son, you can be an even nastier piece of work, and then he was.
You can be whatever you want to be, son.
Yeah.
Standing in the dictator's boyhood home, the trio hash out a vision of a young Stalin daydreaming about being the world's biggest bastard, but just when the moment and surroundings begin to hit them, James only goes and breaks a panel he likely wasn't supposed to touch in the first place.
I've broken Stalin's house. Jeez, I'm going to the gulag.
James!
Number 6, Crouching Jezza, Hidden Hamster, Enviromental.
Now, Richard Hammond is in this car.
One of the carryovers from the trio's version of Top Gear were the news-based discussion segments wedged between films, which were eventually jettisoned after Series 3. While Conversation Street and the like slowed the show down to a halt at times, it allowed for moments, jokes, and observations that couldn't fit into the programme otherwise.
Where Richard Hammond was concealed in this car. James, could you give me a hand?
Certainly.
Okie doke.
Hello!
There he is.
Hello!
Case in point, Jezza's curly harebrained scheme to smuggle a person in a car, while going on to use Hammond as a makeshift parking sensor. Think of it as one part filler, one part torture. Number 5, James May, Fire Brigade, unscripted.
James, this is very riveting, but it's irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant.
It is irrelevant. It's like saying, Jeremy, you lost to Manchester United yesterday. I wasn't there, and I wasn't taking part.
Tired of the droolies in the home audience complaining about how scripted the trio's antics have become, the gang decides to forge ahead with limited planning, just to show how rubbish the results would be. Except they aren't. Jeremy and Richard set off in a classic versus, pitting an Audi TT RS against a completely incompatible aerial Nomad, while James rises to the challenge that isn't in place and builds a fire engine out of a Lada Riva.
It's too big! I've run out of water!
It's complete and utter nonsense, which only becomes more nonsensical when James stops to update the scores for the still non-existent challenge. Somehow it all builds to a waterlogged May losing a contest that only he is in. Number 4, the Ford GT versus public transport, the Falls Guys.
Well, what happened there is basically we missed a train because you don't know to slow down when it says finish across the road.
Clarkson, Hammond, and May have taken part in this type of challenge a few times before. The format has been well established. Jeremy gets an especially hot and speedy car, the Duke of Hammond and His Royal Highness Captain Slow slum it with various forms of mass transit. This time, things are a little different. For one, Richard, hobbling along on crutches, is effectively dead weight, which isn't improving James's mood any.
I'm just going to do a quick brake test, all right?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, they work.
But what makes it all juicier are Jeremy's successful efforts in sabotaging the pair's flight plans.
Well, I wonder if I could just tell you in confidence, they've both just come out of rehab. So on the flight, could you make sure the attendants don't give them any alcohol?
Number 3, Hammond's Rimac crash, past, present, or future.
Getting on it, getting on it, getting on it. This could go so wrong.
At times, it can be impossible to discuss the Grand Tour without mentioning the trio's prior gig, Top Gear. It becomes all the more difficult when Richard Hammond pulls something like this. Recalling his infamous coma-inducing 288 mph blowout crash of a jet-propelled dragster, remembered by Hammond as when he began to like celery, Richard opened the GT's second series with a horrifying crash of a rare 1,224 horsepower electric sports car. Reality and the newsworthiness of the crash may have robbed this moment of its surprise factor, but seeing it unfold was no less shocking. Hammond himself was surprised to survive, barely escaping certain doom, while Clarkson and May, who were present, assumed the worst.
Hammond,
when was the last time you went home after work not in an air ambulance?
Number 2, blowing up the house. Opera, art, and donuts.
Our plan was to smash the place down with some big demolition equipment. But there was a problem.
To anyone accusing the Grand Tour of being fake or overly scripted, well, you're kinda right this time, mate. Ostensibly, due to losing a bet 2 episodes prior, Clarkson is forced to allow Hammond in May to blow up his £4 million Cotswold home.
This thing really works! This rocks! Oh my word!
In reality, it was very much a planned demolition, as Jeremy planned to build a 12,173 square foot, 6-bedroom, 5-bath mansion in its place. But while the event was a bit kayfabe, the explosion was not only legit, it was spectacular.
That got it.
What's more, James May seemingly really did pull the trigger on the operation, so to speak. Number 1, green machines. Enviromental.
How much does it weigh, James?
What units would you like?
Tons.
5.
Sure, this wasn't the first time the gang made a vehicle, it wasn't the last, and it wasn't even the only vehicle they made in the GT's first series, but it was nonetheless a glorious affair. Forced to make a set of environmentally friendly cars out of a pack of old Land Rovers, the 3 follow through true to form. Jeremy goes all butch and primal with skin and bones coachwork, Richard simple and rural with his sod-bodied ride, while James opts for an optimistic but hopeless mudmobile.
Dogs have come and eaten your car!
They haven't eaten it, they've destroyed it.
While there's something endlessly satisfying about a border collie destroying Smuggo Clarkson's Flintstone wagon, it just can't touch the joy and payoff of watching May's clay chariot self-destructing.
James!
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent clip from WatchMojo UK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.